Australia lost a war to birds? Yes, this really happened. In 1932, the nation of Australia found itself in open conflict, not with another country, not with rebels or invaders, but with emus, those big flightless birds that look like ostriches with an attitude. And against all odds, the emus actually won. The story begins in the aftermath of the First World War. Thousands of Australian soldiers returned home from the trenches of Europe to find a country that was struggling with its own problems. The Great Depression had taken hold, and farmers in Western Australia were trying to make a living by cultivating wheat on marginal land. Just as farmers were preparing for harvest in late 1932, a new enemy arrived. Around 20,000 emus descended on the farmlands of Western Australia. To the emus, the wheat fields looked like a free buffet. To the farmers, it was nothing short of a plague. Fences meant to keep out rabbits couldn't stop birds over 6 feet tall. The emus trampled crops, gorged on wheat, and caused chaos. The desperate farmers appealed to the government for help. And since many of these farmers were veterans themselves, they asked the military to intervene. In November 1932, the Minister of Defense approved a mission to deal with the EMUs. 2 soldiers were dispatched, led by Major G.P.W. Meredith, armed with machine guns, 10,000 rounds of ammunition. On November 2nd, the soldiers set up an ambush near a group of about 50 birds. They opened fire, expecting a massacre. Instead, the emus scattered in all directions. The machine guns jammed. Only a handful of birds were killed. The next attempt involved mounting a machine gun on the back of a truck. It was a disaster. The ground was so uneven that the gunner couldn't aim properly, and the emus outran the truck. The operation became a slapstick comedy of military blunders. Major Meredith himself admitted that the emus had a remarkable ability to dodge bullets. He described them as if they were guerrilla fighters, operating in small groups, scattering at the first sign of danger, and regrouping again later. By the end of the campaign, after weeks of frustration, the military had fired thousands of rounds but killed perhaps only a few hundred emus. Estimates suggest the death toll was as low as 200 to 300 birds. Considering the flock numbered in the tens of thousands, the impact was negligible. Meanwhile, the cost of the operation had grown, the soldiers were exhausted, and the farmers were no better off. By early December, the government quietly called off the mission. The Great Emu War, as it came to be known, had ended in defeat. The public reacted with a mixture of embarrassment and amusement. Newspapers mocked the military's failure, and opposition politicians ridiculed the idea that Australia had sent armed forces to fight birds, and lost. The farmers were left to find other solutions, mostly involving building stronger fences to keep the emus out. Over time, the story of the Emu War became a kind of national joke. Today, the Great Emu War of 1932 lives on as a quirky piece of history. Not all wars are won with firepower, and sometimes the victors are the ones who were never really trying to fight in the first place. So the next time you see an emu strutting proudly across the Australian countryside, remember, these birds once took on the army and won.